If you thought you've seen the last of Sir Pentious, then you were wrong. It's been confirmed that Season 2 of Hazbin Hotel will explore what got Sir Pentious into hell in the first place, which immediately raises like a dozen questions for me. Is heaven investigating his past in an attempt to get him exiled, despite redeeming his soul? Are we going to learn how everyone got into hell, or will it only be a select few characters? And yeah, why did Pentious wind up in hell? He seems so innocent compared to literally everyone else.
Except maybe Charlie.
Was he actually a menace on Earth, or are the rules of heaven even more whack than what the show has already led us to believe? We're going to answer all of these questions and more in order to cope with the fact that we're probably going to see GTA 6 before Season 2 of the show. You see what I did there? Usually people say something like, oh, we got Baja Blast ice cream before GTA 6. That's real, by the way. Look it up. But not me. I am a forward thinker. The only thing scarier than divine judgment, though, is the prying eyes of hackers, internet service providers, and others that can view your personal data, which is where private internet access comes in, the sponsor of today's video. Private internet access is the world's most transparent VPN provider, with over 30 million downloads. They never record or store user data, and their no-logs policy has been proven multiple times in court and by a third-party audit in Deloitte. What's a VPN? Well, it stands for Virtual Private Network, which hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. Through this method, it shields your digital life from those on a mission to exploit your private information. A nice perk is that it comes with loads of entertainment benefits. Private internet access works with all the major streaming services, so you can access more content than ever before anywhere in the world, which is by far my favorite part of the service. Streaming services such as Netflix have a massive library, but you can only access a fraction of that library based on your location. For example, I can connect to Japan and watch the first Ted movie, Rick and Morty, and a buttload of anime and adult animation that I wouldn't be able to watch on Netflix otherwise. Watching Netflix without private internet access is like paying for a 3-course meal, but you can only eat from the kids menu. I'm trying to get some ribs, but they're only serving me corn dogs? What's up with that? Private internet access helps you overcome these restrictions by allowing you to change your IP address to one of the 84 countries they have to choose from and all 50 states. It's super fast and super easy to switch. PIA is available for all platforms: Windows, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and many more. And with just one private internet access subscription, you can protect an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. Signing up for private internet access is risk-free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and 24/7 customer support is available. Click my link in the description and you can get an 83% discount on private internet access. That's just $2.03 a month, and you also get 4 extra months completely free. Thank you, Private Internet Access, for sponsoring this video. And now, let's get back to some Hazbin theories. The mystery of why Sir Pentious got sent to hell is actually pretty interesting to me because, as far as we can tell, the homies of Hazbin aren't too far removed from how they lived and died on Earth. Angel Dust died of a drug overdose, and now he's trying to get clean. Husk is a gambling addict, which I'm sure was his vice on Earth. If Nifty was a serial killer, I don't think anyone would even bat an eye. And would you be surprised if Vox was a businessman or a spokesperson in his past life? It makes sense to me, especially if he was a CEO. They're all destined to go to hell. So what do we know about Pentious? Well, he's an inventor. He apparently died in his 40s in London during the year 1888, and he was likely born in Staffordshire, which was a hub of engineering and industrial development. According to the wiki. With all this in mind, Pentious almost certainly died in an engineering accident, or maybe even at the hands of his own creation. But that only solves half the equation. What exactly about the profession would be viewed as sinning and sentence him to eternal damnation? Because from everything we've seen, Pentious doesn't seem like someone who's evil at their core. Despite starting out as a self-proclaimed supervillain, it's clear he actually likes being a good guy. His knack for villainy seems to be a facade, a coping mechanism that stems from trust issues and not wanting to be hurt or taken advantage of. And because he wanted to be cool, longing to be accepted by his peers instead of being treated like a laughingstock. I see the revelation of Pentious' past going down two routes. One, Pentious actually did some heinous shit, like he was actually a serial killer or was inventing weapons of mass destruction to wreak havoc on humanity, though the show would almost certainly play it like a gag. Or number two, the show continues to lean into the good place vibes they set up in episode 6, and we learn that it's way easier to get into hell than heaven. I think both of these would be great developments for the narrative. It's a reasonable assumption that Sera and Lute will conspire to cast Pentious and any future reform sinners out of heaven, as they're both against the idea for different reasons, although it definitely just boiled down to prejudice. If Pentious really did lead a sadistic life on Earth, then it puts the theme of redemption to the test. Sure, he was a scumbag on Earth, but he got his act together in the afterlife. He earned his halo. That's the whole point of the hotel, and clearly a higher power felt the same way. Would Sera go against that higher power just because of her own personal feelings on the matter? And if so, what does that say about her own morality? However, I think the idea that heaven's tricky to get into would not only be more interesting, but the route I'm rooting for because I think it'd provide a backstory that's more in line with Pentious' character. Jumping back to the Good Place comparison for a bit, and you can just go to this timestamp if you're watching that show and don't want to be spoiled or something, but it eventually comes to light that the Good Place hasn't had anyone arrive at the pearly gates for a long time. And that's because the Good Place operates on a point system that isn't exactly the most balanced. You recycle, you'll get a few points. But if you have, let's say, a destination wedding, you can lose thousands of points, placing you deep in the negatives.
For example, a couple in Osaka, Japan just decided to have a destination wedding. Negative 1,200 points. The theme's Lord of the Rings. They're basically doomed.
It's easier for humans to cause indirect harm to others or the planet they inhabit than it is for them to do good, even if they're constantly striving to do good things. And as a result, most of humanity has ended up in the bad place, even if they don't actually deserve such a fate. I think Hazbin could be going for something similar, especially after Charlie called out the fact that none of the angels really know what it takes to get into heaven. What if Pentious ended up in hell because of what his actions caused, regardless of his intent? What do I mean by that? Well, I suspect that Pentious wanting to be a villain but dying a hero could be an inverse of his life on Earth. In his human life, what if he wanted to be a hero who unfortunately died a villain even if he didn't intend to? Pentious seems to be a brilliant inventor, but who was he making stuff for exactly? Probably the kind of people who would also end up in hell. Pentious' time in the hotel showed us that he longs to be respected and accepted. He's basically rated R Doofenshmirtz if you think about it. But the only way he could get noticed is if he stood out from the rest. And to achieve that, he turned to science, his natural born gift. But sadly, none of his inventions that could help people were getting any attention. The only clients he could attract were the ones interested in inventions that could hurt people, i.e. weapons. Like say, I don't know, a giant death ray we never got to see in action? Pentious was sent to hell because he pulled a Tony Stark. He did an Oppie! Using his talents to make weapons of mass destruction and selling them to parties who obviously were up to no good. With Pentious being a little oblivious, maybe he was manipulated into building weapons, maybe he was forced into it, or maybe he was just blinded by the adoration and praise he received from his clients. Rationalizing that he isn't really doing anything wrong because he's only inventing the technology, he's not the one using it, and according to his clients, the ends justify the means. Or again, if he was forced into it, having his own life threatened if he didn't comply, the guilt may have been eating away at him to the point where the only way he could live with himself is by fully embracing the title of a villain. Which is why he's on his Dr. Eggman shit at the start of the series. This facade was his coping mechanism. Also, given his trust issues when he first checked into the hotel, I would not be surprised if his death was caused by a betrayal. A partner or client taking him out of the picture because he either stood up for himself or stood against what they were doing. If any of this remotely tracks and Pentious was aware that his life's work was being used to harm others, and he just turned a blind eye, it makes sense that the angels saw him unfit for heaven. But if this was something he was forced into, that complicates things. If his options were, build this or we'll kill you and your family, then ending up in hell would feel like a cruel punchline to a horrible joke. For all we know though, Pentious could have just jaywalked, and that was enough to be cemented as a sinner. It may not be as something as convoluted as I'm pitching. I'm just throwing out a scenario that puts morality to the test, as I'm sure Sera will be bending over backwards to justify her own prejudice, instead of accepting that the system is flawed, and she allowed a genocide when that wasn't the only solution to her imaginary problem that sinners were going to overthrow heaven. No one in hell really seems to care about heaven all that much. They just want to be left alone. Either way, I am confident that learning about Pentious's past will pave the way for us to learn everyone else's backstories. Like, it'll really get them thinking about why they all ended up in hell too. And with Angel Dust's siblings having cameos throughout Season 1, he'll probably be next in line to share his tragic backstory with the rest of the class. But with all that said, these are my guesses on what could have landed Pentious in hell based off everything we know, and I'd love to hear yours. Drop your theories in the comments down below, and keep the combo going by dropping a follow at AwestruckVox and at Roundtable Vids on Twitter and Insta. And shout out to Dream Big Star for another phenomenal thumbnail. Be sure to give him a follow on Insta, link in the description. Check out Criger for some dope cartoon merch, and if you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you next time. Peace!